It is the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. With a lot of hockey and baseball to a little BS. It's the BS Sports Show with Brendan Azoff and Stefan Rosner on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I am Brendan Azoff. Joining me in just a moment is Stefan Rosner, and we got a really exciting show today because our special guest coming on at 9 o'clock is the Islanders radio play-by-play man, Chris King. So all you Islanders fans that are watching have heard his voice before on your long drives home, and it's exciting to have him on. We have a lot of NHL playoff discussion to get into, and of course, we have to dive into the struggling New York Yankees and New York Mets as well as what's going on around the MLB. So, Stefan, big show today, and let's kick it off.
Well, I had a dilemma before the show started. I was thinking, I wasn't going to wear a hat for the first time. I like my hair. I wasn't going to wear a hat. Then I realized, though, that my gray hairs from last night Islanders game would show. Therefore, I put the hat on. Let's do it.
Yeah, no, last night's Islanders game we'll get into in the second half hour, but that was definitely a struggle for you Islanders fans who have waited so long for an Eastern Conference final appearance. But getting into it, all three teams who were up 3-1 in the series that wound up blowing the two-game lead and then forced a Game 7, all advanced. The Dallas Stars starting off a 5-4 win in OT, and that whole series was back and forth, extremely exciting, and a lot of offense, but the rookie, Yoel Kiviranta, with the hat trick to seal the deal with a game winner in overtime. That's some first playoff game to have. Yeah,
that's not too shabby. You look at this game and, it was back and forth. And this guy, Yoel Kiviranta, get used to that name because he just adds another element to this Dallas Stars offense that we didn't really think existed until the playoffs when they broke out. But you got guys like Sagan, Ben, the defense, Heiskanen, Klingberg. Now you got to worry about this guy deflecting shots. He looked like Joe Pavelski.
Yeah, that was some redirect. He was being held up too in front of the net and still got a stick on it. And just an amazing first game.
And for a young guy too, the stage isn't too big for guys like that. They've been playing professionally for a very long time. He gets his chance and makes the most of it. He wasn't scared to go to the dirty areas. And I think like your first game, it might take a little bit for you to go there. You're facing faster shots than ever from the point to try to deflect. But no, he really did his best Joe Pavelski impression, and he found a way to get his team to the next round.
Yeah, all three goals that he scored were in the area that we like to call the house, which is right in front of the net around the slot, and just a great first playoff game. And I wonder if not being able to play in front of fans and not hearing the rally towels and the opposition, because that game would have been in Colorado had it been with fans. If that calmed his nerves down a little bit, just said, hey, let's play hockey. But nevertheless, 3 goals and a huge come from behind OT win for the Dallas Stars in Game 7.
Did you hear his post-game interview? They asked him, he's like, I hope to be in the lineup next game.
Well, that's as modest as it gets right there, right? Obviously he wasn't in the lineup up to that point, so there was a lineup change that put him in. But usually when you get a hat trick here, you're going to be seeing some minutes in the next tilt.
Do you even sleep it? You scored the game. Forget the hat trick. First game ever, you scored the game-winning goal in Game 7, joining an elite group of people that have done that. You're not sleep. They're partying like crazy. I don't even know if he's old enough to drink. He's probably not. But not here anyway. Canada. They have their 18s. Canada.
As much fun as you could have in the bubble celebrating with your teammate. I'm sure they did that night. But another team that also probably celebrated is Vegas Golden Knights, who looked to be on the brink of what could have been the most surprising elimination I've ever seen in postseason history after completely dominating the 2 losses in Games 5 and 6. But they bounced back with a 3-0 win, 2 empty net goals, and Robin Lehner wasn't all that busy, but still got the shutout.
That's his 3rd shutout of the series. And Leonard was great, but his team in front of him was also great. We'll get into Shea Theodore, top 10 defenseman in the league. He had 13 goals, 31 assists in the regular season. In the playoffs, he's a point-per-game player. 16 points in 16 games, 6 goals, 10 assists. This was a guy that was taken in the expansion draft by Vegas. All the moves they made pretty much were spot on in the way they wanted to build their team. But he gets taken from Anaheim. And I bet Anaheim wants him back right now.
Oh, yeah, especially a team like Anaheim that could use some defense. So they stole him out, and every single player that Vegas has on that roster seems like they were a steal out of that expansion draft. But you watched Vegas that whole series. Game 2 was the only game where they weren't the better team, right? So that was one of the more odd 7-game series. Give Vancouver credit. They didn't get a lot of chances, but when they did, they found their way to score. And you could tell that those 3 extra games that Vegas wound up playing hurt them in the game 1 against Dallas, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But here we get to the Islanders now. You're New York Islanders.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, you want to go back into Vegas?
First off, we saw with Vancouver. I mean, as people on the East Coast, we know we pay attention to Vancouver and all the teams out west and all that, but they have so many guys that are so talented up front. They have, I mean, Quinn Hughes that's like a Cale Makar. You have to watch him when he's got the puck. He is dangerous. But the biggest thing that stood out to me was once Markstrom went down with the injury, the play of Thatcher Demko.
Yep.
This was in numbers in the playoffs in 4 games. A 2-1 record, 0.64 goals against average, 985 save. If that's not keeping your team in it against one of the tough, I mean, he played out of his mind. Obviously, Markstrom played great all year long. He was the goalie to go to. He gets hurt. But Thatcher Demko had a hell of a series despite, them not advancing.
I'm glad you picked me up there and remembered that because I don't know how I passed over Thatcher Demko, but it wasn't like he came in as a backup and faced minimal shots. He faced at least 40 shots in every single game against Vegas and just was standing on his head, turning them away. Absolute brilliant performance from him. And you wonder if he gets a look at now being the number 1 goalie in Vancouver next year. I think Markstrom's a free agent.
It wouldn't be a bad choice. I mean, obviously it's minimum, 4 games played. That's it. But he definitely had some eyes looking his way. Just positioning, his reflexes, everything that he did against one of the best offenses. This was an offense where Mark Stone, Pacioretty, they were getting in deep on him, in tight, those plays, and he was coming up big every time. But now let's move on to the Islanders, shall we?
Yeah, you're New York Islanders. Thomas Greiss, listen, he did his job, only 16 stops in the shutout. But I thought that Thomas Greiss looked good. And the Islanders usually look solid, especially in elimination games. They've proven up to this point they're going to be very hard to score against, until last night. But Mayfield and Green contributing from the defense. And to me, Andy Green's been such a pleasant surprise this whole postseason. He's always been in position. They got a veteran guy that they didn't really expect to play in this type of atmosphere because they had Johnny Boychuk, and Boychuk gets injured. He steps in, and he's done a pretty nice job so far. He's
done a great job. And this goal for Scott Mayfield, first off, beautiful shot. Too much time. When Devon Taves, I think, passed it over to him. No. I think it was Devon Taves. It was one of them. Passed it over to him. I was like, wow, he's got so much time. He might shoot this. He shot this. He listened to me. Good idea. But he needed this goal. After what happened in Game 6 with the broken stick in overtime, Hayes taking it, making a great pass. Provorov scores, keeps them alive. That was in double overtime. You needed Mayfield to step up, and you felt good for him there. So obviously, we're not going to get into what happened yesterday till later because it's just depressing. But no, Mayfield played well. Green played well. You got scoring from defense. But the Islanders' offense has been great, and they weren't really getting scoring. They weren't relying on defense to score, but they did in this game. This is one of the best games the Islanders played the whole series. It was domination. It's what we actually in the first round against the Capitals. That's how they closed that series out, with just complete dominance. And we saw that. And I think what happened with the Flyers is they put so much time and effort and energy into coming back in this series. They were just dead. They looked awful. I mean, 16 shots against Greiss. You got to test Greiss more than that, given what he's done in the regular season. And just as a goalie, you got to test the goalie more than 16 times. But it really was, easy rebound controls, nothing. And then when Greiss got called on, in big moments, he made saves. But the Islanders completely dominated that whole game. And then yesterday, but we can move on. Some other disappointments.
It was dominant start to finish, but we'll leave it at that. And yes, as you were about to get into, Colorado, Philadelphia, Vancouver. I think for the first 2, Colorado and Philadelphia is more disappointing. Obviously, Philly wound up being the 1 seed in this weird type of playoff format, and Colorado, with all the talent they had, suffered a couple of injuries, and that wound up being their downfall. It's tough to see for Colorado because I picked them to win the cup. I thought that they would be in the conference final, at least against Vegas, and they came close. And I think that if Grubauer and Eric Johnson aren't hurt, they do jump over Vegas and get to this conference final. But for Philadelphia, as good as they looked in that round robin, is as bad as they looked in the first 2 rounds. They struggled against Montreal, and they struggled against the Islanders. And even though it wound up going 7 games with New York, it didn't really seem like they outplayed the Islanders at all throughout the series, and especially in that 7th game. So very, very disappointing end to a season where a team that looked completely unbeatable at the halt of play and then to start the restart of this postseason.
It's hard to – I don't know. They don't think they got cocky, the Flyers. They come out, they play really well in the round robin. I just think they weren't as good as as they put themselves in that place in the first seed. They weren't a first seed team. They're not a team I don't think that's better than Boston, better than Tampa. I don't even know if they are better than the Caps. If the Caps have backs from the whole series and Hopi doesn't act like Hopi,
Yep.
This team is probably probably fourth. I would take them fourth. They finished fourth during the regular season, which shows the biggest thing. But when your top guy like Travis Konechny fails to record a goal in the whole entire playoffs, that top line didn't really score much. Giroux turned it up in the Islanders series late in that series, but he wasn't doing much. Couturier wasn't doing much. Hart was doing all he could to keep his team in it, and he could only do so much. The goals that were scored really weren't his fault in Game 7. And even if they were his fault, he's not going to be perfect every single night, and he played well. But like I said, if your top guys aren't in the Game 7 especially, let alone the playoffs, your top guys have to produce. The Dallas Stars, I know Jamie Benn and Seguin haven't done much, but they turned it up this series. It's never too late to wake up, and they did, and it's why they advanced. But I think, like you said, for Colorado, we expected Stanley Cup bound, or at least Western Conference Final against Vegas. That was honestly, I thought they were going to blow Dallas away. But, that's hockey for you.
Yep, a demoralizing end to their season as they blew a late lead and wound up losing in OT. But yeah, they'll be back. They have too much young talent. They'll be healthy and rested for next season. So Colorado's not going anywhere. Now we're going to get into a little more upbeat stuff. The King Clancy Memorial Trophy was handed out a couple of days ago. It's given to the player that best exemplifies leadership both on and off the ice with humanitarian contributions to their community. The finalists for the award were Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers, Matt Dumba of the Minnesota Wild, and PK Subban of the New Jersey Devils, the latter of which Subban is always up for this award. He's a very, very big pillar in any community that he's in, whether it was Montreal, Nashville, or now New Jersey. But no surprise really here, Matt Dumba won it after starting the Hockey Diversity Alliance and all the social justice stuff that he's done around the NHL, especially recently. Can't really go wrong with picking Matt Dumba. He's done a great job, and that's who won the King Clancy Memorial Trophy.
Yeah, I think he deserved it, especially with what went on in Minnesota this year. Helping to come together and create a program like this, the Hockey Diversity Alliance, is such a great move. On top of that, though, it seems like Dumba might get traded.
Yep.
He's on the trade block, but that's a discussion for another day with their situation. But congrats to Matt Dumba, definitely deserved it.
Yeah, he did, and especially with the speech he gave, and he was the lone figure that was kneeling or standing with the fist up, and he kind of took the brunt of it at first, and then the NHL started to step behind him. So it took bravery and credit to what Matt Dumba did. And the other award that was given out yesterday was the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy, which is given to a player that exemplifies perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. Obviously, this one was a lot of eyes were on it because you had Bobby Ryan, who was a nominee for Ottawa, who struggled with alcohol abuse, turned himself into the player rehabilitation program. Stephen Johns for the Dallas Stars, who suffered from migraines for almost 2 years, right? And then wound up coming back. And then Oscar Lindblom from the Philadelphia Flyers, who, as we all know, is diagnosed with cancer and wound up making a crazy return in the last round of this playoffs against the New York Islanders. And the winner was Bobby Ryan, which was kind of controversial. But again, Bobby Ryan did have a lot of, he basically announced to the world that he was an alcoholic, got help that he deserves, and come back and scores a hat trick in his return. So it doesn't get much better than that.
That game, watching him come back, not even 3 goals is amazing, credit to him, but the first goal, this is a guy that's been struggling since he went to, he had a few good years with Ottawa, but he was one of those guys that he was a superstar in the making. You wanted him on your team. He was an elite winger. You thought that he was going to give you 25 to 30 goals every year. 40. He was a very good player, and he just died down. That's sort of what happens when you go to Ottawa, unless you're a player like Pajot or Anthony Duclair, where your stock skyrockets. But no, it was great to see this guy from New Jersey too. And I know someone. I'll shout out to Farmingdale State College on Long Island. The head coach for their ice hockey program, our club team, is very good friends with Bobby Ryan and was working on a movie about him and his life. And before this happened, and he obviously had to take a break. But it takes so much. Not knowing Robin Lehner, but with what he did with the New York Islanders and coming out and checking in, it takes so much. It takes a lot out of you to be willing to tell everyone, the world, people that judge you for nothing, don't even know you as a person, to say, "Hey, I have a problem and I want help." There's a lot of people out there, probably in the NHL and every sport league, that are alcoholics, drug abuse. Remember a few years ago, Jared Stoll was caught with doing cocaine. Or even Kuznetsov. There are people that do drugs, all that stuff. And if you ask them if they have a problem, they can say, "No, leave me alone. It's not your business." But then you have guys like Bobby Ryan who said, "You know what? I do need help." And I remember, he talked to his wife about it. And his wife's like, "You need help." And again, you're professional players where, not that you think you're above it all, but you're living the dream. You can do whatever you want, drugs, drink, whatever, blah, blah. You live in the life. You're a superstar. Why take the foot off the gas? But for some people, it's, you're destroying your house, your family, you have kids, you have teammates, all that stuff. So Bobby Ryan deserved it. Oscar Lindblom had a rare form of bone cancer. And when he left, he said, I remember the interview, he said, I'll be back on the ice one day. He never expected it to be this soon. And technically this award is for the regular season, which we talked to earlier, Brendan, which why he returned in the playoffs. I still would count it if he had a great, even if he didn't have a great playoffs, obviously he was up for it. And then Stephen Johns, we haven't heard his name in a few years because he has not been on the rink. To see a guy come back from, head injuries. We've seen other guys with head injuries too that just can never return. So it's awesome. All three guys could have won it, and I would have been happy for all of them. I'm happy for all of them now that they actually got to return and play.
I think Stephen Johns actually scored in his first game back as well. I believe it was against the Rangers. So I remember the emotion on his face, Bobby Ryan, the emotion after he scored the third goal, everyone's chanting his name. It's just seeing the sense of, wow, I actually made it back. And even Oscar Lindblom with the when he started skating, not even to play that game, but he came out just for warm-ups, the lift that gave his team. So really amazing that all three players were able to come back. And tomorrow now, you have one more thing to say?
There's a few more things to say. Well, with Oscar Lindblom, he came on the ice for the actual game he played in and stick taps for a good solid 30, 40 seconds. It's awesome to see. I remember a couple of years ago when Brian Boyle had cancer.
Yep.
He comes back and scores a goal in his first game.
On Hockey Fights Cancer Night.
On Hockey Fights Cancer Night. A few years before that, I'm trying to remember his name. He was on. Bickle? No, it was not Stu Bickle. It's the other Bickle.
Brian Bickle?
Brian
Bickle, Stu Bickle.
When he was on Brian Carolina, Bickle. They let him go in the shootout. And he scored the game-winning goal for Carolina. It's when hockey works out. I remember Martin St. Louis on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
You love when the stars align, and it's just that's why sports is so great because we don't know any of these guys, and we you see that happen, you're crying. You're crying because you know how. I mean, we're players that stopped playing after high school to ice hockey and stuff, but we still know what that would feel like if we don't even come close. But being proud, the teammates, even just being a teammate or a member of the team that works for them, it's just a great feeling. But we can move on.
Yep. So tomorrow, the Jack Adams Award, it will be handed out to either Bruce Cassidy of the Boston Bruins, Alain Vigneault of the Philadelphia Flyers, or John Tortorella of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Obviously, this is for Coach of the Year. And this one can go one of three ways. Obviously, the Bruins were the best team in the league, but that team's expected to do that. Alain Vigneault and the Flyers were not expected to finish second in the Metro, and yet they did. Or you can go John Tortorella, who's, I believe, won 2 already. And that team was, after losing Panarin, Duchesne, and Bobrovsky, expected to finish 8 out of 8 in the Metro. And they wind up upsetting Toronto in the qualifying round and giving Tampa Bay a 5 overtime battle there in round 1, too.
He may be the worst person to have in a post-game conference, but my vote, hands down, not even close, John Tortorella. Yes, the Flyers play better than expected. It's the same way I don't think you can give Rask the Vezina because look at the team in front of him. Look who he's playing with. I mean, Columbus lost so many guys. That's not like they lost mediocre third line. They lost 3 stars. And despite what they did this year, because it wasn't really good besides Panarin, it's crazy to see what coaching can do. Everyone says the coaches could only do so much, but when the players buy into a system, I mean, look at the Islanders. The Islanders without Trotz, when they had Doug Wade or Jack Capuano, they had pretty much a similar type of team, but they had no system. There was no system in place, and they played terrible. They blew leads left and right. It was an awful hockey most nights. But you look at John Tortorella, and year in, year out, his team is dedicated because they believe in what system he puts in, blocking. I mean, you're not going to get a team every time that's going to be willing to sacrifice the body, but he makes that clear that if you do that on most nights and you block an abundance of shots, good things happen. Besides on the injury front, obviously, they faced a lot of injuries. I think they had, 20-something or 30-something people in total hurt. I mean, it was bad. But at the same time, they bought into a system and they played their hearts out, and they go against Tampa, who Tampa knew this year they couldn't take them lightly. Columbus swept them last year in the playoffs. And they made it hard on Tampa, despite losing 4-1 in the series. It wasn't that far off. Overtime in game 2 and game 5, right? Game 2 and game 5. Game 2 went to 5 overtimes.
That was game 1.
Game 1 and game 5?
I believe it was game 1. Yep.
We'll check.
Yeah, it was game 1.
Okay, game 1. I mean, it was just so tight-knit, and for a team like Columbus, who probably shouldn't have any chance of staying with a team like Tampa, they did very well, and they really shouldn't hold their heads at all. But they blew lead. They blew lead in game 3, I think it was, right? Mm-hmm. Or game 4. They blew lead in one of those games, and It was awful. I remember Tortorella walked out, but they can't hang their heads at all. Goaltending was great. Their whole team as a unit played great, and they just lost to a better team.
I agree. And despite me believing that John Tortorella should win the Jack Adams Award, I think it's going to wind up going to Alain Vigneault, just because the way that team was slated, they had a young goaltender. People expect them to be good, but not great. And they wound up on a huge run at the end. They won the round robin as the 1 seed. So I think Alain Vigneault is going to wind up winning it, which I despise and I don't like at all, because I think that what John Tortorella did in Columbus truly deserves to be recognized. When we come back on the other side of this commercial break, we will discuss the conference finals, both in the West and the East, that are underway. And just after that, we will have Chris King of the New York Islanders radio broadcast. Stay with us.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the BS Sports Show. And now we're about to dive into the Western Conference Finals first. Obviously, Game 2 is underway now. They're in the first period scoreless. And the big story was Marc-Andre Fleury getting the start for Game 1 of the series. Robin Lehner would have been his 4th start in 6 days, I believe, and he's back in goal now. Robin Lehner is for Game 2 of the series.
Yeah, you look at this series, and the first goal is the only goal. The first shot on Fleury goes in, and that's it for the whole entire game. Fleury makes 24 saves, but Khudobin, his first career playoff shutout, stops 25 of 25. He's been impressive all season long and playoff long. I mean, that's not a guy we talked last time. He doesn't look like a stereotypical goalie. He doesn't make the saves that we expect a goalie to make physically, like looking at him. Butterfly looks weird. He doesn't look like a goalie, but he finds a way to get it done, and that's really all that mattered. Klingberg goal was scored 2 minutes and 36 seconds into the game. It was a very, very boring game, but playoff hockey, shutdown defense usually helps.
I mean, Anton Khudobin just made a paddle save in this game. That's unreal. So as soon as we start talking about him, he does something like that. When I look at goaltenders, right, there's certain, even Robin Lehner, he's a big guy, doesn't look like the prototypical goaltender, and it looks awkward, but they get the job done. And Anton Khudobin is one of those guys. But the first game of this series was a prototypical Vegas Golden Knights game so far this postseason, where they didn't look great, but the opponent had trouble scoring on them, and they had trouble scoring. And that's been the story so far. They've had 1 goal in their last 120 plus shots, and it's tough to see a team that has this much offensive talent struggling right now, but they've managed to win games that are low scoring. They capitalize on the empty net, but the first goal becomes that important for a team, because they're not going to give up much, but if they get that first goal, they have the ability to shut it down, similar to the Islanders that we've seen do so far this postseason, and that's how they've been winning most of their playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, we go with Fleury, even though Lehner was coming off and shut out. But we saw with the Islanders, the Islanders did something a little different. They switched it up. But for Marc-Andre Fleury, this is not you're not putting in a backup. This isn't a backup player. This guy has, 3 Stanley Cups? Or 3 Stanley Cup champions. Two.
Three. I think you're right. It's 3.
Before he got moved to Vegas in the expansion draft, he didn't play the last one because Murray took it, but he was part of the roster. This is not a backup. He might be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. He hadn't had a great year. Lehner's played great, but you have Pete DeBoer has all the confidence in the world to put Fleury in any situation he has to. The problem with Fleury is that Lehner's been very, very good. These are the stats for both of them this postseason, not including whatever Lehner's done tonight. Fleury has a 3-1 record, a 2.27 goals against average, 9-10 save. Pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah, but then you got Robin Lehner, 8-4-0, 1.99 goals against average, 918 save percentage. So clearly, Robin Lehner has been better. He deserves to be in there. And for a guy that's watched him play, loves his game, the way he goes about it, just a world-class guy. This is awesome to see him do this stuff. I have a bone to pick with the NHL, Brendan.
Why?
The app. Because I'm going through stats right before the show. We're getting stats, everything like that. And going to a team that got eliminated, their page no longer has the stats for the playoffs. You have to go to the website to do it. So I'm looking through, trying to get stats for, Columbus, all that stuff. They got rid of the stats page. I don't know if they're embarrassed. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to find stats. And then I go, let me look up Vegas's goalie stats real quick while we were on break. Oh, right there. Bang, boom. Because they're still in it. So My mindset, I think they're embarrassed. I don't know why. It's really okay in NHL. You can keep the stats on for the rest of the season. It would really help us save some time.
It's hard to navigate on the phone. That's what it is. I think online it's a little bit easier, but I mean, this game right now, it's 0-0, 4 minutes left in the first period. Shots are 8-5 in favor of Vegas. So it's not like, it's been offensive so far, but I've seen Qudobin make 2 or 3 stellar saves, denying Vegas of a goal. So, I mean, right now, Anton Qudobin's the hottest goaltender in the postseason, and it's going to take a lot for Vegas to beat him. You got to get some eyes in front of him, some cross-ice passes. But for the Dallas Stars, they looked like they couldn't score a lick, and then their offense started to jump from their defense. And once you see Klingberg always on the score sheet, Heiskanen always on it becomes repetitive, but that's how they are winning games. And now the teams start sagging their forwards up a little bit, getting them closer to the point, opens up the slot, and then you see Jamie Benn, Joe Pavelski, and those guys start to jump in. It's just been a masterful job so far by the Stars of getting their defense involved in their offense, and they're equally as hard to score on as Vegas.
Yeah, Heiskanen in 17 games this postseason, Brendan. 5 goals, 16 assists. That's 21 points in 17 games.
Unreal.
You look at it, though, and their offense, they have so many weapons that it shouldn't be relying on their defense, but it just adds another, the defense picked up their offense when they weren't scoring. Like you said, Heiskanen's 21 points in 17 games. He's very, very good, and that's great that he's putting up these numbers, but, once Dallas figured out offensively, he could focus more on defense a little bit because they're scoring. But like you said, they get the puck towards the net. Jamie Benn's a big body. Corey Perry's a big body. Even Pavelski in front, we know what he could do. It's so key to get those point shots to the net, not getting blocked. And we're really not seeing them take stupid shots.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there no stupid shots from them. Everything gets through. And it's been really interesting to see because their coach took over midseason too. And I think it's Rick Bowness, and he's just done a great job of coaching, getting the defense involved, getting the forwards going, and they don't need to score as much as they've been scoring, especially against Colorado. But Colorado found an interesting way where if you just attack them off the rush, you can get there. But for Vegas doesn't need usually attack off the rush. They more cycle, set it up. They got a big grinded out team with some skilled guys that can contribute. But another team that's skilled and was able to attack off the rush and didn't really miss the net was the Tampa Bay Lightning. And this is the part of the show that I'm so excited to get into because last week we had discussed, is the Islanders' defense against the Capitals and the Flyers legit or is it a fluke? And an 8-2 shellacking in game 1. Uh-oh.
What was it? What team tweeted out? I know you don't want to hear this, but that's sort of what I want to message out right now. I think it was Carolina or some team tweeted out. Remember earlier back in the playoffs, we're not happy with the way things happened, but whatever. There's no excuse. I'm going to put some information out there, and it might come up as an excuse, but it's not an excuse. Tampa had 7 days off or 6 days off before facing the Islanders. They already gone to Edmonton. Islanders play a grueling 7-game series, have a travel day, and then they go back and play game 1. That didn't help at all, but the Islanders, again, no excuses. You're professional players. They didn't show up, and guess what happens when you don't show up against a Tampa Bay Lightning team? They kill you 8-2, and it wasn't like 8-2 where such great chances. The Islanders played well. It was just a better Tampa team. From the opening faceoff, Tampa had their legs and the confidence because the first goal, Braden Point, goes around Ryan Pulock, who is a very good defenseman for the Islanders. He not only goes around Pulock, but goes around Greiss and Pelech. I don't know if Pelech just thought it was an amazing play and was like, let me watch this because I don't want to see it on the replay. I want to watch it right now. Doesn't get his stick or anything. Puck goes in. Honestly, fine. 1-0. Islanders get it back on the power play. I think. I don't know. That whole game was a blur because I want to forget about it. Drank heavily afterwards. But they cut 1-1. I'm feeling calm. I'm like, all right, boys, you answered the call. It's great. It's great to see. And then, hold on. Let me just open the gates. Here comes the flood because it was like Noah's Ark in there. The 58 minutes and 53 seconds without missing a shot on goal.
That's amazing.
67's left. Paquette missed the first shot. Jordan Eberle averages like 8 misses a game in limited. It's just Tampa just didn't miss. But, we talk about it. Is the Islanders' offense and defense that good or they face bad teams? I really think the Islanders' offense and defense is that good, but they just were not ready. And we talked earlier. Do you think it was their game plan that wasn't correct under Barry Trotz, or do you think it was the fact they couldn't execute? And we both agreed that Tampa has the puck. You can't do anything if Tampa has the puck. They couldn't execute what they want to do. They took lazy penalties, but you know why they take lazy penalties? They stop moving their feet because they're tired in the defensive zone. Tampa knew how to break in successfully and cycle. For minutes, it seemed like. And every shot they took went in. I do not blame the goaltending. Greiss has to get pulled there. Trotz, after the game, said, I was trying to do it to rile my boys up. I didn't think Greiss had a chance, maybe one of them, but It was all about the traffic in front.
Yep.
Goalies in general really can't make saves if they can't see it. Some goalies get lucky. They took Carter Hart had a great series. They took Hart's eyes away the last game, the best they've done the whole series, and they won and they scored 4 goals. Vasilevsky, the Islanders had to get chances, and that was only they're going to score. They had to score off the odd man rushes, but they didn't have their legs. They were exhausted. They really had no chance, and Tampa was ready and knew exactly. I mean, they'd probably been studying film for the last 6-7 days and watching every game, pinpointing exactly what they had to do. But, I mean, you saw a veteran like Andy Green take 2 penalties, which he doesn't do. Pajot took a penalty, one of your best penalty killers. It was BS, Brendan, from the start. I'm sweating right now. It was BS from the start. It was not a good game. Do I expect them to come back Wednesday and play a much tighter game? 100%, if I could quote you. But it was a rough one to sit through. It was laughable just for the fact that it seemed like one team was an AHL team, the other one was in a superstar. It looked like an all-star game when there was no defense. The goals that the Tampa scored weren't like bad goals the Islanders were letting in. It was screenshots, finesse goals. That pass by, I think it was Kucherov or Hedman to the point, 2-point, who just tipped it in. Do you remember who it was?
The Kucherov, he had 5 points, so
okay, yeah,
you can't go wrong picking him.
I mean, a nice shot pass, backdoor, right to point, who hit it out of midair, which obviously was very easy for them. I could not do that. Scores a goal, and it's just laughable how wide open and how terrible a defense that's one of the best defenses in the game today looked when going against a hot Tampa team.
Well, I mean, listen, Tampa they're that good right now. They're playing with that much camaraderie, and the Islanders, yes, they will bounce back, but the Islanders bouncing back has nothing to do with this series because Tampa's that good. Tampa's head and shoulders better than the New York Islanders. They're head and shoulders better than every team in the East. The question is, can they stay that hot? Now, Braden Point, like you said, 2 miraculous goals. He tucks one puck in, bats another out of midair. Kucherov with an unreal pass. Obviously, next game, Barry Trotz is not going to have the same defensive schematics that he came with this game. They're going to trap differently. They're going to stack the neutral zone, stack the middle of the ice. They're not going to let those cross-seam passes. As you saw in Kucherov's goal, it was Shattenkirk up the middle, sauced it, little tip play. That's not going to be allowed next game. So Tampa's going to have to cycle a little more, and I think the Islanders will be able to cut down some of that. But the only way that the Islanders can get back into the series and make it a long series, competitive one, they got to possess the puck more. And I know it's not their game, but the only way they can do it, they have to grind, they have to cycle. And if they don't have anything, instead of chipping it and changing, you got to take it back. Almost like what we did in roller hockey, they have to possess the puck. And that's the only way you're going to be the Tampa team that they're not going to be shut down like the Flyers were. They have too much skill, too much talent, and their mindset is get the pucks to the net. And like we saw in last game, they're going to hit the net when they shoot the puck.
You look at the Capitals series and the Flyers series, and the Islanders were amazing 5-on-5 against the Caps. Only thing they were really allowing was power play goals. Flyers power play was worse than the Islanders, which I think is ludicrous because the Islanders power play seems to they'd rather just take the 5 yards instead of the penalty. But you cannot take 6 penalties again. Sorry, they took more than 6 penalties. You can't give the Lightning 6 power plays in a game. They went 3 for 6. When it was 3-1, this game was over because there was no signs that the Islanders had any life. The Islanders looked like every other team that the Islanders have faced, in this playoffs, because the Islanders play such a lockdown defensive game. They allow nothing, and the Lightning mimicked their game, shoved it in their face, and what the Lightning are so good at is just moving the puck. They got the skill to do whatever they want to do deking, but their defense gets the puck up so fast, and that's credit to Vasilevsky too. Good puck moving defenseman, goaltender really helps games. You see other games where the Islanders really don't have a great puck moving goaltender, and what it allows you to do is make quick plays. I know Mike Smith gets a lot of heat for the errors he makes, but having him on your team when there's a wide open guy by the opponent's blue line and he sees that and can make that play, not many goalies can do that. So I think that the Islanders, what you said, they have to possess the puck, and it has to happen from the opening faceoff, because once Tampa plays their game, there's no going back. We saw what happened. There is no going back. You are done. And the question is, can the Islanders figure out how to do that now? Because if it goes another thing, like I don't think it'll be 8-2. If the Islanders lose, I hope it's more, I'm more proud to see a loss, maybe like 3-2 in overtime. I mean, was I proud of the guys? Yeah, they're coming off a huge Game 7 win to just get absolutely cremated. And it was tough to watch. But I mean, Kucherov and Point, they had a hell of a game, Brendan. They joined an elite list. Kucherov 1 goal, 4 assists yesterday, Point 3 goals, 2 assists. They're the second set of teammates all time with 5+ points in a conference final game. The last two to do it was Coffey and Curry, 1985 Edmonton Oilers. So they joined an elite group, and credit to them because they are very good hockey players, and the Islanders just saw just how good they possibly can be.
They are. Kucherov also tied the Tampa Bay franchise record. I think tied Marty St. Louis with the most assists in the postseason. So, both these guys yesterday, they scored 3 of maybe the nicest goals I've seen, and even the last one with Andre Palat it wasn't the last one, it was the 7th where Andre Palat tucked it in. But the thing that surprised me the most was the Islanders, who were so good defensively, and this probably is tired legs, couldn't find the shooting lanes to block. And the second and third goal were both point shots. And to me, that was surprising because the Islanders do get in the lane so well, so often. The Hedman shot, obviously, that's a power play. That's different. But the McDonough one, that was more from the side. The Islanders have to get in that lane. That shot can't get through. And I think that you'll see a much tighter defensive game. But like we've seen, this isn't a Tampa Bay team that's just going to get – you have to legitimately earn a chance to hold them under 2 goals. I don't know what the stats were during the regular season, but I don't think that they had back-to-back games scoring less than 3 goals. So if a team has that much offensive firepower, with or without Stamkos, you're going to have to really bear down defensively. And the only way to stop them from truly scoring is, like we've said, to hold the puck. So that's what the Islanders are going to have to do.
Things got worse when Kyle Clutterbuck blocked I'm pretty sure it was a Sergachev slapper. He left the game and didn't return. And as of now, we don't know if he will play in game 2. There's a chance, but with Barry Trotz, there's always a chance. He doesn't announce anything until we see a goal. We don't know who's starting in net until whoever leads the team out for warmups. And that's a question I'll ask you because you're watching it. And I'm not my bias, no, because I do cover the team and I try to give the most insightful information. I think the Islanders should go with Varlamov. I got a lot of heat on Twitter today about that. Why? What did Greiss do wrong? It has nothing to do with the way they played. I'm not even taking their play because their defense did not give the goaltenders nearly enough chances. You said a big problem was blocking the lanes, but let alone block. Get the guys out of the way. The goals a bunch of the goals from the point, Greiss and Varlamov could not see them. And if that was the case, also there was guys left right in front of the net. This was just a very different Islanders defense that we've seen it all. Players that you expect to make those plays weren't. And, it begs the question, does Johnny Boychuk come in? And I want to say yes for the veteran leadership, but is he their worst defenseman? No, but with his age and his speed, he's not fast. And I think if you're seeing a guy like Pulock get walked, Boychuk in that similar situation is going to get walked.
Yep.
Boychuk's not going to play a better yes, Pulock did not play push the guy to the outside. Just Point had a lot of speed. And great move. I know, holding the stick is not something that's really called often. You're allowed to put your hand up when someone's trying to take the puck off your stick. Point did a great job at protecting the puck, being able to put that in. But I don't think Boychuk's making that play. People want to move him out for Taves. People don't even want to see Andy Green come out because he did struggle yesterday, but everyone struggled.
Yeah, that was a collective struggle.
Nick Leddy looked awful on defense. We have to credit him for his shot because, it doesn't matter how bad you are in the NHL. You could pick corners, and on Vasilevsky, he looked, besides dropping, which I don't even want to get into that just because it pisses me off. I wish I was 6'5" or 6'3", whatever he is, and 200 and took up 3/4 of a net. What a shot. He sniped Vasilevsky. So, they didn't even celebrate after the goal. They gave him a nice tap. I'm laughing just because it's oh, wow, you're doing something now. It looked like the Lightning stopped playing because they didn't care. He had all the time in the world. It looked like a Mayfield in the Game 7 where they're all right, Mayfield, here's 35 seconds. You take your time now and shoot.
You know what it looked like? It looked like when I was playing in Squirts, 10U, and you used to play those bad teams that you were up 11-0 on. The coach would say, all right, 7 passes before a shot on goal. That's what that game looked like towards the end. But the question you asked me previously, Varlamov should get the start. He's been your horse this whole postseason. In a game that you need to win, I think you turn to him. I know that Greiss had a great Game 7, but you got pulled, and I think that you have to let Varlamov go. Obviously, Trotz looking around that locker room is going to know which goalie has the better, physical, is ready to go for that game, and which goalie is going to come out and play the best. But I think you go back to your number one after a bad loss like that and say, listen, you've been the guy this whole postseason. You're going to be the guy today, and we need your A game. So that's what I think they're going to wind up doing. I agree with you.
Would you have started Greiss after the 16 save shutout for Game 1?
Yes.
Okay, I agree.
Because we had talked about this earlier, and you said, what if Grice gets shelled and he's been their backup? But what if they didn't start Grice and Varlamov got shelled, right? And I think that's a worse look. So I agree with starting Grice. Grice got the shutout. He looked good the last 2 games. Go with him. It didn't pan out, but it wasn't his fault. And obviously both goalies got hit hard that game. So I agree with both moves, and I think you do see them return to Semyon Varlamov in the next game.
I mean, it's just a tough, they make it for the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 27 years. And I'm 22, so I know I tweeted out and it got some love, so I appreciate it. The fact that my dad came up to me after Game 7 and goes, like, you understand, like, what's happening? I was like, yeah, they just won. They're going to Eastern Conference. He goes, my dad goes, I watched them win 4 cups. They have never been on a run like this since you were alive. And then I was like, you know what? This is the greatest Islanders run I've ever seen. And the fact that it started off with an 8-2 blowout makes me want to cry. I have tissues here just in case it got a little too sensitive. I can't wait to be joined by, we get joined by Chris King in about 9 minutes, because I was fortunate to meet this guy. Hell of a guy, completely down to earth, does an incredible job on the radio. I know a lot of people don't listen to the radio, but my God, his personality comes through. The goal calls are amazing. I really wish more people could hear him. I know the Islanders Twitter posts him a lot with his screams when the Islanders score. It's just incredible. But hopefully I said some more happy news on the Islanders, because you guys do get to hear from a voice who really knows exactly what's going on. We as covering the team or watching as fans, we don't see what they see. We don't interview the players like they do. I know Barzal, they interviewed him today. He said the mood in the locker room was good. We didn't skate today, just little stretches, watch some video. I mean, what the Islanders needed was rest.
Yep.
And again, we go back to Tampa had a lot of rest. And for a hot team, you never want rest. I feel like you want to go back out there. Trotz has said that multiple times, especially when the Islanders run their big winning streak and their point streak. I'll never forget it. 10-game winning streak, 17-game point streak. I'll remember that till I die. They want to keep playing every night. An off day there could just kill momentum. And I think for the Islanders, after Game 7, though, they might say we want to come back out there next game and play. We felt great. But you look at what happened with the Flyers trying to come back in a series. They tired themselves out and weren't ready for Game 7. The Islanders had it, quote-unquote, easy against Flyers in Game 7, but the whole series was grueling. They come out to an early lead in the series, and they can't close a deal. Every night they have to battle really hard. Games going late in the third, tying it up, overtime, losing. Tying it up, overtime, losing. It wasn't a joke of a series for both teams, and they really looked exhausted and not ready. They didn't have a lot of time to, get into the video room and look at this Tampa team they knew was very good. I didn't think they went into that game going, oh, we're going to get shelled today, boys. I don't think that's what happened. I just think they were not physically or it's Game 7s. We've never played them. They're mentally grueling as much as they are physically, and I think the Islanders got away from their game. They weren't ready to face a Tampa Bay Lightning team that was this hot, and they knew it before they knew they were playing in a hockey game. It was 3-1, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I believe that sometimes after getting, smoked like that, the best thing to do is step away from the rink, right? Like you said, they didn't really skate today. That's the best thing. You've played enough hockey this postseason where a day off isn't going to hurt you. They need a day off, and you just walk away. You say, listen, forget about that. You come back tomorrow now, and you bounce back. So for the Islanders, I fully expect a much better performance. I don't think you can get worse than an 8-2 loss. And
you can. You can.
Well, for the talent that they have after an 8-2 loss, I don't think it's going to get worse. There's only one way to go from there. But Tampa Bay is fully rested, and they are still clicking, and that is a very, very scary team, especially when their defense was scoring, their offense was scoring. Vasilevsky's still in goal there. Their work is definitely, if they win this series, then they have proven everyone wrong.
You want to hear 2 funny things? Well, it's funny as we could laugh about it now. I wasn't laughing about it yesterday. Islanders won 52.7% of the faceoffs last night.
50, yeah, but
I know.
Dump it right in.
Yeah. Well, the thing is they were so tired after the Lightning cycled that all they could do was dump and change. That's when a team is that good is when the other team finally gets the puck and they have zero energy and all they could do is change their lines. But the last time the Islanders gave up 8 or more goals was in 1980 against the Flyers. That was the year they won the Cup. One of the years they won the Cup, but all the way back there. So the Islanders have given up 8+ goals before in the playoffs, and it's worked out. So knock on wood, but
okay.
Obviously It's happened, Brendan. Crazier things have happened.
The last time the Rangers won the President's Trophy, they won the Cup until they won the President's Trophy and didn't win the Cup.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you watch all these.
Don't want to give up 8 goals.
You watch all these stats. Like I think it was the Flyers. Flyers never come back from being X amount down with X amount of minutes to go, and then both times they showed that stat, they came back and did it. So
the amount of stats they have in today's day and age are just absurd. And this hockey player hasn't scored a goal on Monday after scoring on the last Tuesday of the previous. Like they just come out with these things that who cares? Just let these guys play. But I'll give the Islanders one piece of advice, and it's don't give up 8 goals again in the series.
Oh yeah, I mean don't give up 7. 3 at most if possible. But one thing before we have 4 minutes until he gets on. Vasilevsky made a save yesterday, and oh my God, did it piss me off. Not that he made the save. It was the reaction of the NBC Sports Network crew about what a split save that Vasilevsky made on Eberle. The puck was not going in the net. If anything, it was going it's Jordan Eberle, so it was going in complete opposite direction of the net. He makes a solid save to stop. So they blew that out of proportion. Vasilevsky was not tested. He made the one good save I think he made was on Eberle late. It was a backdoor. He made that beautiful save. But I just think that it was just a nightmare of a game. And I can't wait to talk to Chris King and see what he thought about it, because obviously it's a negative feeling, but you hope they bounce back.
Yes, you do. And we're going to go to commercial break in a little bit. But obviously, like Stefan mentioned, Chris King will be joining us right after that break. And we got a lot of Islanders-related questions to ask him. And obviously, he's been watching this whole entire run up close, calling every game. And we're going to enjoy getting his insight, especially after what happened last night. So stay with us. And after the commercial break, we'll have Chris King.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hello and welcome back to the BS Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Joining us right now is going to be Chris King, the New York Islanders radio play-by-play announcer, and we're going to ask him several questions about the New York Islanders and his personal growth in his career. So stay tuned for that interview, which will be honestly terrific.
Yeah, we're just waiting for him to get on. So we talked a lot about the Islanders already, but I can't wait to talk about more. Obviously, we're not going to go completely in depth since we covered most of what happened, the absolute domination. There's so many words we could possibly use to describe a football game. I mean,
you hate to see it.
But before we get him on, until we wait for him to pop up, do you think that this is a game that we're going to ask Chris King this as well, but I'll ask you. I think this is a game the Islanders needed to get absolutely killed. Is this something like not a wake-up call, but does it help? Can it help them overcome, they just saw how good this Lightning team actually is. Is it now, okay, let's rethink our game plan and go from there?
Normally you'd say yes, but there's a difference between like a wake-up call and then a shellacking, and there's also a difference between a regular game and then having, you're struggling and waking up. This is the Eastern Conference Final now. So the Tampa Bay Lightning are a good team. That's not a question at all. I don't think you need to wake up at this point, but I do think if there was a time where the Islanders ever had the thought that they were on cruise control, this definitely will start them up again and get them going in the right direction. The Islanders definitely had a lot more hopes going into that game. And honestly, I thought they were going to wind up winning that game after they bounced back so quick and scored. But again, hockey is an interesting game, and Tampa Bay just started on a groove.
I don't understand how any team plays this. I mean, they murk teams left and right during the regular season. That's how good they are. But they don't even have Stamkos in their lineup, and it doesn't even matter. It makes Stamkos look like he's not even needed. You got Andre Palat, who's been cruising. I think he's on a goal scoring streak. He's one of those guys that no one really thinks about, but he finds a way to get the job done game in and game out. And for a Lightning team that has so much talent, you can't just watch their first line. You got to watch their second, their third, even Pat Maroon, a guy like that who goes to the dirty areas and finds ways to score. You got to watch them too. It's like whenever people play the Islanders, you got to watch all 4 lines because they know how to play hockey. And I think it's going to take a full team effort to turn the page after yesterday, but it seemed like the Islanders in the locker room already did that.
Yeah, they should. And honestly, the best way to do it is just forget it. As soon as you step in that locker room, you look at your boys around you and you go, that's over with, right? The best way to end that game is for it to be done. And let me tell you something: when you're down that much in the third period, you're looking at that clock, and it looks like it's moving in reverse. So the Islanders wanted to get out of that building, get back to their rooms, just put their feet up, shower after the game, and be done with it. And I think that you'll see how good of a team they are by how they respond. Even if they lose game 2, if it's a tight-knit game, that's the true indication of where the Islanders are at as a team, as a group, as a unit. And I really think that they're going to be much better in game 2.
Let's be realistic here. The Islanders clearly aren't the favorites against the Lightning. So let's say the Islanders can't beat them and Lightning move on. Do you think that Dallas can find a way to get through past Vegas, or do you think Vegas has that same effect like the Tampa does, where they really should move on because they are that hard to play against, despite Dallas taking a 1-0 lead in the series? Well,
Dallas can really beat Vegas the way they're playing. They're that good, and I think that both these teams play a very similar style. But that's not a very, they're not really the same, because that game's 1-0. Vegas has struggled already coming in, and I think that Vegas needs to get one. Once they get one, they'll start to feel more confident in this series. But the same thing with the Islanders. If they win the next game, you could scratch what just happened in that 8-2 loss, and it's even now. It doesn't matter what the scoreboard says. The series still tied 1-1. So that's the mentality you have to have, and they'll have it going in. But I think while we're waiting for Chris King to hopefully come on, we should move over to our baseball talk, because I know there's a lot to talk about there.
More stuff to get us really pissed off about, but that's all BS, Brendan. So before we get into I know you want to go off on what the Yankees are doing, because
I do.
Keep it PG for the kids watching that are up past 9 o'clock on a school night, Brendan.
Unreal.
Okay, so let's see. Look at the league leaders around the league first. Trey Turner leads with a .362 batting average. Trout and Tatis are tied with 15 homers each. Jose Abreu, 40 RBIs. Trevor Story, 12 stolen bases. Tatis, 43 runs. Brad Hand's got 12 saves for Cleveland. I know he was a trade deadline acquisition. I think it was a couple of years ago, and he's played well. Shane Bieber, 1.25 ERA, and Shane Bieber has 94 Ks in 57 and 2/3 innings. He's 7-0, and Chris King is here, everybody. So let's get to this interview, because this is going to be one hell of an interview. Chris King, how are you doing today, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
We are doing great. Obviously, after last night, I'm not doing as okay as I want to be, but, you're here, we're here. It's a great day to be alive and talking hockey.
All right, very cool.
So we'll just get it starting right off the bat. You, from 1985 to 1998, you were a software engineer. What made you get into radio? What made you want to do that?
Well, it's a little bit more of a backstory to it than that. I had 2 interests when I went to college, and they were radio and computer science. So what I did was I went to Geneseo in upstate New York for 4 years, got my bachelor's in communications. They had 2 radio stations and a TV station there, so I worked a ton there. And then when I got out, I still had that interest in computer science. So I went to Binghamton for grad school and got a master's in computer science. So when I came out of Binghamton, there were a lot more jobs on Long Island at that time for doing software engineering for Grumman, a huge company on Long Island at the time, and started as a software engineer. But after doing that for a couple of years, I just really missed radio. I missed it big time. So I started working my way back little by little at a small radio station out in Eastern Long Island. And then covering the Islanders for that station, doing like a 1-minute report each morning. And then that station ended up getting the rights to broadcast the Islander games. So they let me do the pregame, the postgame, the intermission. From there, it went to a different station where I also produced and engineered the broadcast. From there, it went to another station where I did color for 12 years. And now again to play-by-play, which I've done for 10 years. So as I said, it's a pretty complex story, but yeah, it started out as a software engineer, but my love of radio was always so strong going back to my early college days at Geneseo. And I was able to kind of reverse the roles of those 2 jobs and let the software engineering stuff go and be full-time radio now.
Well, we appreciate that you worked your butt off to get there, because I know I'm always driving around to hockey games and coming back, and I'm like, all right, let me get the radio on. I got to listen to Chris King call this game.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome to hear.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really do.
So you talked about how, you're interested in radio and everything, and obviously calling the Islanders, you're usually at the arena. So what's this postseason run been like away from the arena and not calling it in that big atmosphere?
Yeah, that's the hardest part, guys. There's no doubt about it. You guys know what the Coliseum's like, right? There's no better place to call a hockey game than that building when it rocks. So, you play the hand you're dealt. Nobody wanted it to be this way, but, would you exchange it for a chance to go to the conference finals for the first time in 27 years? Absolutely. So, It's a little different. We do things at our Hofstra University radio station, our flagship radio station, which is WRHU. The good thing, actually, guys, is it's directly across the street from the Coliseum. So I kind of have the same ride every night. Instead of going right into the Coliseum, I go left into Hofstra. They're literally, across the each side of Hempstead Turnpike from one another. So at least the ride's the same, but it's a very different experience when you're, I'm just looking at two TV screens, two big 55-inch TV screens to kind of show me what's going on with the game, and then another one that kind of tells me the time and the penalties and the shots and all that stuff like that. So it takes a while to get used to. It's not as easy as it is when you're in the arena and you can kind of look at whatever you want. You're kind of limited to what the director's showing you on the screen. But after a while, you get used to it. It's still not the same, though, as being at the arena. I just love the energy and the excitement of being in the arena. And hopefully we'll all get back to that next season.
Has it saved your voice since you don't have to scream as loud over the crowd?
You know what? I still got pretty excited. If you guys heard the game stuff call. Yeah, you know what? I give credit to the NHL, though, guys, because they do a really good job of pumping the sound in. So, again, we're wearing the headsets, and, I'm hearing the pucks and the sticks and the skates and the goal horn and the fake crowd, if you will, the referee. So in my head, when those headsets are on, even though I'm not at the game, I'm hearing all the sounds I normally will. And, when you hear it back on the radio, I've listened to how it sounds after we finish with it. You wouldn't know that I'm not at the game. And even I had, some friends and relatives who thought I was in Toronto. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm here on Long Island. But, that's just part of the job now. And everybody's in the same boat. There's no local radio or local TV that's allowed in the bubble. So, as I said, you have to play the hand you're dealt. And right now it's been a really great run for the Islanders. So I'll take that trade-off for sure.
Definitely will take that trade-off. So many people don't know how much preparation goes into what you do, what broadcasters on TV do. So take us through what a typical day before an Islander game may be like, and has it changed that they're in the playoffs?
Yeah, well, the one thing I will tell you guys, playoffs actually gets a little easier because of the fact that you're playing the same team at least 4 times in a row, and in the case of the Flyers, 7 times in a row. So in the regular season, there's a lot of prep that goes into, for me, again, I know the Islander side of it cold, so there isn't a lot of prep that goes into that side. But let's say, in a typical NHL week, we're playing the Rangers on a Tuesday, the Devils on a Thursday, the Bruins on a Saturday, and sometimes, the Capitals on a Sunday. You get 4 games in 7 nights quite often. So that becomes the hardest thing is that, as soon as one game's over, bang, I'm on to the next game. I'm doing my prep for the next team and trying to come up to speed on their roster and what they've been doing recently and what are their lines and what are their D combos and what are they doing with special teams. So that is much harder, whereas in the playoffs, it's the same team for up to, in the Flyers case, right, 7 straight games. So there's a lot of work that goes into that first prep. Again, once, the Washington series was over, boom, it was right on to Philadelphia. Same thing. Once the Philly series is over, it was right on to Tampa. And that one day is like, almost a full day spent coming up to speed on that team. But then when you get into the series, it does become much, much easier. And that really all I'm doing is updating the stats between each game because the lineups don't change a heck of a lot. The rosters don't change at all. We have a lot of sound bites, audio sound bites that we drop in throughout the broadcast. So I still have to do all that. And that's a lot of editing just to, play the sounds of the Islanders and the coaches and things like that. But honestly, the playoffs become the easiest time because it's, the same team for up to 7 straight games.
You go, Brendan.
Yeah, well, that's definitely, I could understand why, because like you said, that prep definitely has to get easier if you're seeing the same team, especially just for your eye test. But in terms of the eye test, you've watched a lot of Islanders players play this game, and how does Matt Barzal rank in terms of the most skilled Islanders players you've seen?
Yeah, he's still young, Brendan. So, you try to hold back, but, you think about what you've seen him do already, right? The Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year. Then he goes to the All-Star game his second year, and he wins that. And he was incredible playing with Crosby and Letang, right? And then he goes to the All-Star weekend again, and he wins fastest skater. So, I mean, he's had 3 incredible years. And I think it's that skating ability that makes him elite. So I can't quite put him yet in the category of the guys that I watched, the legends, the numbers that are hanging from the rafters at the Coliseum, because he's not there yet. But, there are guys that, that I've watched come through that are highly skilled guys that, even in the post-dynasty years that, I can't put him on a LaFontaine or a Turgeon level yet, a Ziggy Palffy level yet, not quite there yet because he's so young. He's only 23 years of age. But, when you see the things that he does and then you hear the other All-Stars talk about him in those weekends and, we talked to Patrick Kane about him and he said, oh my God, he's my favorite player to watch in the NHL. It's just crazy, right? So you can see the potential there. Barry's turning him into a much more complete player. But I think, if he continues to do what he's done, and he's led the team in scoring all 3 years he's been there now, right? Maybe down the road we can start talking about him in the same breath as some of those guys that are hanging from the rafters if he can win some Stanley Cups too.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be a plus.
Yeah, I'll sign up for that.
When you come home from working a game, are you watching other games around the league, or are you just mentally exhausted from hockey and want to go watch some, crime TV show or something like that? Do you pay attention? Obviously, you pay attention, but are you watching it every night when you come home and watching the league games?
Stefan, I wouldn't say wall to wall because, like you said, you want that little escape. So sometimes, like I said, I started binge watching some old shows that I'd never seen, or sneak a comedy in there, get a drama in there as well. But yeah, I will check in on the other games, especially like leading up to the next series. Like we didn't know who the Islanders were going to play each time. I would start watching the games of the potential opponent. So now the other games are just one potential opponent if they take the next step, right? So I'll definitely peek on Dallas and Vegas. So throughout the course of the year, you're almost too busy to watch too much. And one thing I find myself doing in the playoffs is sometimes I get so caught up in the heat of the moment of calling the game that you can miss things. So I do tape every single Islander game. And tonight, actually, before I talk to you guys, as painful as it was, I went back and I watched all 8 goals that Tampa scored. I watched the 2 Islander goals. I watched some things that happened away from the goals. Just little things I want to make sure that I watched again to make sure when I'm talking about it tomorrow that I have a good reference because, again, in the moment, sometimes you miss some things like that. So the answer to the question is, yeah, I don't watch it wall to wall, but I do check in on teams, especially the ones potentially that the Islanders, could play down the line.
I guess AT wasn't dramatic enough.
Yeah, that's right. No, not for sure.
So speaking of last night's game 1, obviously it was a brutal game for the Islanders. They seemed not ready to go, and that could be because travel, Tampa's well rested. There's not really any excuses. They just didn't show up. Do you think the problem was more that they didn't have the right game plan against Tampa or the fact that they just couldn't execute their game plan?
I think what you started out saying, Stefan, was right. I just think it was like the perfect storm of bad circumstances for the Islanders, and the fact that the Lightning hadn't played in a week. They got out to Edmonton early. They were rested. They were waiting. For the Islanders, you went through that incredible stretch last week where you have a chance to clinch in game 5, you lose in overtime. You have a chance to clinch in game 6, you lose in double overtime on a broken stick. You are now faced with a game 7 where all the pressure of the world is on you. And yes, they got it done. They played their best game of the playoffs, 4-0 to knock out the Flyers and get to the conference finals for the first time in 27 years. But then literally the very next day, you've got to pack up. You've been in Toronto 43 days with everything you brought with you. You've got to pack it up. You've got to get on a plane. You've got to fly 4 hours west to Edmonton. You've got to change time zones. And then you wake up the next day to play the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, I think it was just so much on them, in one day that they were just, emotionally exhausted, physically looked exhausted, and Tampa was just sharper and laying in wait, to be honest. So I think, we'll see a much, much different game tomorrow night. In fact, Barry Trotz today gave the guys a complete day off. So even after an 8-2 loss, he didn't practice them at all. He just wanted them to have a mental and a physical day completely away from the game. And then tomorrow, they'll focus on game 2. So, you lose 8-2 or you lose 1-0, it's still just 1 game to nothing, right? So to me, it was the perfect storm of events that worked against them for all those reasons, why they lost by 6 goals after, only having 5 one-goal losses prior to last night's defeat.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was an out of focus game for the Islanders, not something we've seen this whole entire postseason. But do you think it may be beneficial to them to get blown out like that? A little bit of a wake-up call. Obviously, you mentioned the circumstances, but sometimes a little bit of a throbbing like that goes, all right, we got to refocus it and get going now.
I think it's a good point, Brendan, because, like I said, if you lose 1-0, maybe think, oh, hey, we're right there with this team. We're close. It was so, such a close game. And I think it was Devon Taves who said today, this might have been a better situation for us because, we might need that little wake-up call. So, you saw they took a beat down. There's no doubt about it. The defense had some real struggles. The offense obviously only scored 2 goals and, again, wasn't good defensively in their own zone. The goaltending, obviously, both struggled a little bit. So there were a lot of areas that need to clean up. And I think you're right, Brendan. I think if it's a close loss, maybe they have a sense that they're closer to Tampa than they really are right now. But when you lose by 6 and, get embarrassed and you're the only game, being beamed across all of the U.S. and all of Canada, that's a little bit embarrassing. So, again, I think it might have helped that it served as a wake-up call to say, hey, this Lightning team is for real. They score a ton of goals, and they certainly did in game 1.
I know Trotz is very secretive about who he plays and all that stuff at the line. If you had to guess, who do you think starts in goal tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think, Stephanie, it's not a clean slate. Let's just start over and kind of get back to where they were when the playoffs began. And that was obviously Semyon Varlamov, who started 14 of the first 15. Let's face it, neither of them looked great last night. I don't think you can go back to Greiss after he gave up the 3 goals on 9 shots. Varley, though, did give up 5. But I think when you do a total reset, you say, there's an old expression, you have to dance with the one who brung you. And he's the one who brung them, if you will, to where they are now. Although you got to give Greiss a lot of credit for what he did in those 3 games in the Philly series for sure. But I think, you start flat, you put it behind you, you give him his own game from the start. It's tough sometimes for a goaltender to jump in just, quickly in that first period, suddenly 3 goals on 9 shots, and he gets, tapped on the shoulder to say, go in the game. So I think you have to go back to Varley because of how well he played. He broke Billy Smith's franchise record for a shutout streak, in that final game of the Washington series and the first game of the Philly series. So he's been terrific, outside of the struggles he had, just a little bit in those games 5 and 6 where they turned to Greiss for 7 against the Flyers and obviously struggled in relief. But I think when he gets that mental, day to rest and he gets a game to start his own now from the very beginning, I think we'll see the Semyon Varlamov that we saw starting 14 of 15 for a reason.
Last thing before you let you go, Cal Clutterbuck got hurt yesterday blocking a shot. There was no news today about his likelihood to play. Do you think it goes in there? And if not, who comes in to replace him?
Yeah, it's a great question, Stefan. As you said, Barry said, hopefully there'll be an update tomorrow morning. He's tough to replace because that CCM line, as we call it, it's Zizekas, Clutterbuck, and Martin. Any one of the 3 is out. They're just not the same. So to me, we did see Leo Komarov in that spot a little bit. Maybe he's a guy that can come in and play there. He sat out game 1. So maybe you bring in Leo there. And then, where Ross Johnston played on that 3rd line last night with Pajot and Brassard, you still have a guy like Andrew Ladd who's yet to play in the playoffs. You have Tom Kuhnhackl, who's won a pair of Stanley Cups, and Ladd's won a pair of Stanley Cups. You could choose between those guys. Otto Koivula, obviously a center, so I don't think he's kind of going to be the guy there. Maybe Michael Dal Cole goes back in as, he played in the clincher over Philly but sat out game 1. So the Islanders do have 5 extra forwards with him in the bubble. But I think it is a big loss if Clutterbuck can't go just because of the chemistry that, that line has played together for so many years. How many lines are actually together for years, right, as those guys have been? So hopefully, Barry seemed a little bit hopeful that Cal could be in there and that CCM line could be intact.
I mean, that 4th line has been so good, especially with Martin coming back after he went to Toronto for a little bit. I mean, this line has been one of their best lines in the playoffs, the way they forecheck, just the way they play the game. No really other 4th line in the league does what they do. So if he's out, it's tough.
Yeah, and they swing momentum. That's what they do, right? You see Barry put them out there the minute they got down in game 1 trying to swing that momentum. And, Casey's so good at what he does in the middle with the faceoffs and the penalty killing. And Cal's an agitator who can really stir things up. And let's not forget Matty now. Matty Marks with 4 goals. He only had 5 all the regular season. He got 4 in the playoffs already. So, when they can chip in with goals too, then they really have a valuable role. So they only ended up playing, I think it was 19 games together in the regular season because all 3 of them at one point, were badly hurt, especially, Zeker and Clutter with those skate gashes, just nasty injuries. So the team's not the same when they're not together. And I think, although Barry didn't tip his hand, he seemed to indicate that he hopes that Cal's going to be ready to return after, that tough block of the Sergachev shot in game 1.
Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us and coming on. We really do appreciate it. It's been a great interview, and it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Oh, thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Stefan, for having me. Always great talking hockey with you.
Awesome. We'll definitely talk to you soon. Take care, man.
Sounds good, guys. Take care. Have a good night, okay?
You too.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Chris King, like I said, down-to-earth kind of guy. He knows his stuff. Doesn't matter if you're on radio or on TV. He puts in a lot. I was fortunate enough earlier in the year to message him on LinkedIn and talk to him, and he invited me during intermission. He said, listen, at the 8-minute mark of the second intermission, come down. I got like a couple minutes break. Took the time not only to talk to me, he handed me packets they use, said this is what we go through, and he even invited me to go hang with him with the Ducks this summer. He does Long Island Ducks games. Unfortunately, with COVID, that wasn't possible, but
yep.
So glad to have him on. I'm happy that he agreed with us. The Varlamovs to start, a little credibility there, Brendan. High five to the screen, but
maybe we know what we're talking about a little bit.
Maybe just maybe. We need a pay grade. We'll talk to the bosses, but definitely a fun interview.
Before we dive into the baseball side of this, now Vegas is up 2-0, and they are slowly starting to pull away. They took a third goal, got taken back for goaltender interference, but it looks a lot more like the Vegas Golden Knights team we saw earlier on in the postseason. They're circling and pouncing on any open puck right now. So this might be Dallas's version of a wake-up call. It's not going to get to 8, but
I was gonna say,
it might wake them up a little bit.
How much time's left in this game?
I think it's halfway through the second.
Yeah, it's not going to be 8-2.
No, definitely not.
Bet the under on that. All right, Brendan, it's time for your what's going to give us an update about what's happening in this Yankee game right now?
Nothing for the Yankees because they're utterly atrocious. But the Yankees are down 2-1 going into the bottom of the eighth. They've had runners on base in every single inning and managed to score one run. They had the bases loaded with nobody out and got a fly out from Gleyber Torres that, of course, wasn't deep enough. And then a fly out from Mike Tauchman that was. So they scored one. And then none other than Gary Sanchez comes up and strikes out. So Gary Sanchez has been the victims of my rant several times. And maybe that says that maybe we should say adios to this guy. But the only problem is you can't say goodbye to him because Kyle Higashioka has had every opportunity now to run away with something, and he can't hit either. So I don't know. Maybe sign Eric Kratz to a 10-year, $450 million deal and just let him catch if you want to have these guys come up and strike out every at-bat. It blows my mind. But I'll let you speak before I go further because they just get me so agitated, and somebody's got to lose their job.
Your face.
If a teacher forgets how to teach, right? She won't be hired anymore. If a cop forgets how to be a cop, he won't be there. If anybody forgets how to do their job, they get fired. But not for the Yankees.
But a teacher might have tenure.
Tenure. Yeah. Well, apparently every single Yankees player age 25 and younger has tenure.
Yeah, I'll give you a breather because your face is turning as bright red as our.
I just can't with them.
Well, no, this is how I related to Jordan Eberle struggling in the Flyers series. Whereas, think about it, you work a 9-to-5 job. You try really, really hard to do your job correctly, and you fail every time. What happens to you?
You're fired.
Obviously, it's not a realistic thing because these are professional athletes with contracts. So that way, if they do play bad, they don't get cut. But you see guys get so many opportunities to do something. And if they were in the real world with us people, us regular folk, we're not working. We're collecting unemployment. And obviously our unemployment's not anywhere close to what they're getting to not play. If they Sanchez was benched, he's still getting paid his money. And I think that's where in sports you see an issue because a player doesn't it's not like if you play the next game and hit a home run, you're getting an extra $10,000. This is your contract. You could bat .098 and you're still going to get paid the millions of dollars that they owe you. But like you said, for Sanchez, when does it come a time when it's Gary Sanchez just can't be a starting catcher, let alone a DH because
it was last year.
No, exactly. It's been years since he's batted. What I think his first year when he came up, all the Yankees came up, they were playing phenomenal. I remember, was it Greg Bird? When he came up, he was
Greg Bird went on a tear. Sanchez tear. Judge didn't go on that tear yet until the next year.
Who was the guy that went back to back with
Tyler Austin?
Tyler Austin. That's what I was thinking of. I mean, they came up and played so well that you thought this is how they're going to play forever. We know what happened with Greg Bird. I don't think Tyler Austin's even playing that much. I don't even know where he is.
He's overseas. He's in one of the two.
Really?
He's got a career in Japan. Yep.
God bless him. Then you just got Sanchez, and it's like, right. Well, we thought he was a 285 type of hitter with power and on base percentage and crushing absolutely everything. Then it's like, all right, 240s. Could we take that with this 30 bombs? Yeah. Then it's like, what did he bat last year? Under 200?
Under 200.
Bats under 200 last year. Like, well, let's see. He probably get to it this year. What is he even batting?
Abysmal.
Yeah, not good.
Max is 120. Max. It's the worst offensive performance I've ever seen outside of Chris Carter's little stint with the Yankees. And Chris Carter got cut. It's not even just the offense, right? Today it's 2-1. They've had every single chance to score a run. They can't do it. But yesterday they do score runs. They scored 7 runs in the game. They're up 6-2. And all of a sudden you got Chad Green and Adam Ottavino who combined for 58 pitches and can get one out. They didn't get one swing and miss on 58 pitches. What do you get paid for?
Sounds like the Mets.
It does. And the Mets aren't even that bad right now. Like the Mets
I trust Edwin Diaz over Chad Green right now. Do you know Edwin Diaz ERA is, I think, a 2?
Edwin Diaz is better than any Yankees reliever right now. And I could say that with a straight face. Chapman has over a 7. Ottavino's over a 7. Chad Green's over a 4. Britton, every time he gives up a run, goes on the IL because he's too afraid to face the New York media. Luis Cessa's their best reliever right now, which doesn't really say much about the team. They missed Tommy Kenley. They had an opportunity to go out at the deadline and get somebody, but Brian Cashman fell asleep before his alarm went off, and they didn't get it. And now even their best player is DJ LeMahieu because of the Judge injury, and he's struggling now. Luke Voigt, who has 14 home runs, second in the American League, is struggling right now to come through with runners in scoring position. solo home runs only help so much. You need somebody to come up and get that big hit. And I haven't seen that in 3 weeks.
But you haven't seen that in 10 years.
Well, last year, though, DJ LeMahieu was that guy.
Yes, but I'm saying when it matters the most, the Yankees failed to come up with that big hit. Yes, last year's Tobago and 27, everything that happened with the Astros and all that kind of stuff, I'm excluding that. But even in that game, like that big hit that they really need to close. I mean, they're winning these. The Yankees are so, quote unquote, their bullpen is so good that if they go to them in the 5th, 6th, or 7th inning with a lead, usually that's game over. I know Kenley's hurt, but guess what? Kenley's not a make or break for a Yankees team making it to the Stanley Cup. Wow, geez, World Series. He's not the make or break. The same guy, one guy on that team isn't, because we saw last year how well the players that stepped in and did a great job. Gio Urshela put himself on the map. I mean, one of the best defensive third basemen in the league. I know there are better guys, but he is as good as it comes at third base. His bat's very good. He was very clutch last year. But you got guys that get the Clint Frazier, he's gotten opportunities and he's made the most of it. But I think it was yesterday. He had a fly ball to center field with guys on base that could have brought in some runs. And yes, they were winning 6-2 or whatever the score was at that point. But it's the little things the Yankees aren't doing that we're very accustomed to, just not getting the job done. And they're not even in jeopardy of. They're
going to miss the playoffs. I think the Orioles win today. If the Orioles win today, they jump them. I'm pretty sure that's how close it is. And this is the performance they shell out. And the one guy that was getting the hits, right? The one guy that was coming up in the extra innings or when they needed a run was Gio Urshela, and he goes on the IL. And it just becomes the point of, can anybody play through any pain? And if not, can anybody step up, which right now they can't? Can anybody pitch? No. And it doesn't matter. They could be up 7-0. I don't feel like they're going to win the game.
And that's such a new, like us Yankee, we're spoiled. Because this is what the Met fan goes through every single time they wake up and every single time they go to sleep. They have to go to sleep knowing that their bullpen. I mean, look at Jacob deGrom. We've talked about it over and over again, how many wins he could have. When he leaves the game, first, if he dominates, they don't get run support. But he has so many games where he's got leads, comes out of the game, and the bullpen goes, you would have thought you're getting a win. Completely blow it. And as Yankee fans, we don't know what to do with this, because this has never happened to us, where this is probably the worst this team's, even when they missed the playoffs in Jeter's last year. They weren't this bad. They were losing, but that's because they were they were rebuilding on the fly. They didn't have the skill that they have on this team. Then they were playing Jeter at short. That was Jeter's year to write off. That's why it was masked by that fact that they didn't even make the playoffs that year. And then on the fly, and probably one of the fastest rebuilds in pro sports. I mean, the Rangers are up there right now if they could have a dominant season last year, but the way the Yankees did it on the fly in less than a season was, again, credit Brian Cashman. But right now, I mean, you could fire Cashman. He's been there for 20 years. He has one What just happened, Brendan? What happened?
One of the nicest Vegas goals I've ever seen.
Who was it?
Thomas Nosek. It was tic-tac-toe.
Anyway, where was I? Yeah, you're not going to fire Cashman. He's been there for 20 years. At what? Yes, they fire a manager because the players aren't playing well, and it's easier to fire a manager than cut a team. The same way, it's easier to fire a general manager, but the problem is, like, what can he do? They're not staying healthy. That has nothing to do with Cashman. Cashman's job is to get the right players to fit the right game plan they want. And right now, he has the exact team he's looking for. He got Cole. They had Stanton and Judge healthy. Everybody was healthy, obviously, to start a season. They knew that wasn't going to last, but they had the pieces. They had the bullpen. You have the young starting pitchers in Deivi Garcia, King. Even Nelson's getting a chance. Schmidt. Like, you have the pieces for this to be a team that goes to the World Series year in and year out. And this is what's happening. And I heard on the radio I'm going to call him a lunatic. He was a crazy man. Said, pull the team up, trade everybody, move out. It's time to start over. And the guy on the radio was like, all right, that's not a logic. First off, the Yankees have too much class to do that, because that's admitting that they failed. And the Yankees won't admit that they failed because they don't have to. They don't have to. What the Yankees as a collective group, they're struggling right now, but like, they've done everything right. They just can't stay healthy. And when you can't stay healthy and you're paying all these guys millions of dollars, it's hard. What are you going to go out there and get another superstar type of player? You're going to go out and get a Trout right now? It's not going to matter.
Yep.
They really need everyone to be healthy. And we talked about it earlier, in which, I mean, I'm not going to go on as big of a rant as you, but with the injuries we've talked about it is why can't they stay healthy? We've seen so many times in, whether it be sports, medicine, politics, where a big name college like Harvard or Yale, they do a study. You get the data back on the study. Can they send a freaking intern in from a school to look at their training and take notes and do the math and figure whatever concoction they have to do to be like, I don't care that they're getting hurt. I want to know why, because they fired their whole training staff. They were all fired to bring in new people and new techniques, and nothing happening. You're going to tell me it's a coincidence that just every guy the Yankees acquire have no legs, arms, or anything? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's got to be the way they're running stuff.
They're soft.
But like, did Stanton get hurt that much when he was on Miami? He was hurt.
No, I don't think so.
He was hurt, but not to the extent he's hurt now.
But how is he still out? That's what I don't get. Didn't he have like a groin strain or a hamstring strain?
Didn't he pull 2 calves, or is that somebody else?
Stanton's calves already pulled. But to me, you look at Gleyber Torres, right? He pulled his quad and hamstring on the same play, which I'm not even going to get into that because, okay, whatever. But how is he back and you're not even remotely close? The quote was, Stanton is still a ways away from baseball activity. How? It does not take this long. Like, if you go on WebMD and they give you the worst possible diagnosis for everything, if you put in my head hurts, it becomes like you self-diagnose yourself with having cancer. That's how bad WebMD is, right? Look it up, 3 to 4 week injury. How are you still out?
But we talked about this last time. I am hurt. I am hurt right now. I am hurt, and I could still do my job effectively. Yes, I'm not being paid millions of dollars, and so at what point, though, do you think it's the team going, you're too much money, it's not worth the risk, and the player saying you want to leave? Because when Hicks got hurt this year, he seemed like he wanted to stay in the game, but his what's it called? Physically, he was like, They're just showing signs for them to go, you're coming out of this game. Yep. He said, no, I want to stay. But every time you grimace, and I don't know if because we've opened her with the ankle, you walk it off, and I don't even think you have to grimace. A tight hamstring, walk off slowly. Don't draw, because once you draw attention to it, people are watching the game, and they probably have, obviously, people that work for the Yankees are watching the game to catch the camera angles and going, oh, you need to take him out. Hicks, no, I'm fine. The guys that are watching the game going, no, he looks like he's in pain. We got to take him out. Hangs up the phone. He's out of the game. Do we have to get them acting classes?
Yeah,
they have all this money in the world. Could we get Broadway people to just train, go, yeah, I'm okay, or not go, like, because clearly Hicks was in pain. That's fine. You're in pain and you don't think you could play. Then you could show them like you have pain. But just go up to your manager. You get the first, right? Jog around the bases, come out and be like, I don't feel well, or you bring so much attention to it. Like, after a swing, you're like, yes, it hurts and it's hard to mask that, but you just swang. Holy crap. You just swung wrong. Shake it off. You're fine. You're telling me Stanton's legs, right? He still can hit baseballs and then jog to first, because he usually either strikes out or hits home runs anyway. So he's either jogging the bases or he's walking back to the dugout as slow as possible.
There's no desire.
That's the problem.
So I have a question for you before we move on to the Mets. Who do you let go of first? Because I know this is going to sound crazy, because the obvious answer seems to be Boone, but is it Boone or Cashman? Because Cashman has won World Series in the last 20 years. This is an organization that needs to win World Series. It's not, a regular team that could just go to the playoffs and it's a parade. Who do you let go of first? Because everybody that Cashman brings in, like you said, he brought in Sonny Gray at the deadline. He wasn't good. He makes these crazy trades that everyone gives him all this credit for, where they find these diamonds in the rough and Voit and Urshela, and we praise him. But at some point, it's not enough to make it to the ALCS. And if they finish below 500 this season and Boone comes back, I don't understand how in the world you could justify it.
Well, I'll tell you how you could justify it. First off, I don't think you could let Cashman go. It's the player's not getting he's getting all these stars. He's not controlling Sonny Gray's inability to pitch in New York. He's not controlling that Lance Lynn's going to leave the Yankees and be one of the best pitchers available on a market. He's out of control with these things, letting players go. I mean, you rarely see Yankees go and leave and become better. Look at Chasen Shreves in the Mets bullpen. He's not great. Tyler Austin gets traded to Seattle. He's overseas, like you said. I mean, it's very rarely do you see the Yankees get rid of somebody and they turn out to be phenomenal players. And you would expect that because they have so much talent. They got to get, like, Miguel Andujar he should get traded. There's no spot for him. He might leave and become an all-star. Yep. But you could live with that because there was no room on your team for him, even as a backup. He wasn't a great third baseman. I mean, as of now, he probably could play better than anybody else.
You might as well put him in the bullpen.
But he got chances this year and failed. So I think you can't get rid of him. I think Boone has been dealt a really bad hand with injuries. Again, not in his control, but he has made some very questionable pitching decisions that have cost the Yankees game. And obviously, his job is to get them through a game to win games. So when they win, it shouldn't be a shock because he's got the talent. He puts the right pieces in. But he has a problem with the leash. I think we have to buy him a leash that only goes a certain length. That way the dog can't run away. Because he seems to either get pulled too much or he's holding the leash too tight. And he's got to figure out a way to listen. I get it. Your bullpen's depleted. You have to stop going to Chad Green. It's when Edwin Diaz was struggling and told his manager, I'd like to play more days. And his manager was like, yeah, that's just not going to happen. That's not how that works. I know Chad Green is one of your better pitchers on the books. Like on the stat sheet in there, and you think he's going to come out of this funk. But I'm sorry, early in the year, the Yankees didn't have to win games. They were playing to the level we expected. They got off to a great start. They had that lead. They could afford to lose games. Every game's like a playoff game now. You cannot afford to. If the Baltimore Orioles make the playoffs over the Yankees, first of all, that's a complete embarrassment. And second, that sort of forces Cashman to make a move, whether it's
you have to
trading Miguel Andujar. What do you do at Sanchez? There are so many decisions that the Yankees have to make, even if they make the playoffs. Because right now,
you know who I'd love right now? Austin Romine. You don't think he'd get a couple of hits?
I wish they kept him. I mean, I love Eric Kratz. Eric Kratz deserves more money than Gary Sanchez gets. Obviously, I'm saying that now. Kratz is on his way out. He's older, but he doesn't.
So
he's more
Sanchez.
He's probably not DH for the rest of his.
He's on his way out of the Yankees, man. They lost 2-1, by the way. It's over.
No, that's great. They Hap gets the loss. I mean, I guess Hap pitched well though.
Hap gets the loss, giving up 2 runs in 6 1/3.
Now you know what DeGrom feels like.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. Can we talk about the Mets?
Can we talk about the Mets? They're the best team in New York.
I can't.
Baseball?
I can't talk
well,
about this.
Well, thinking about it, actually, Toronto's the best New York team because they're playing in Buffalo.
Right now, even though Toronto looks like crap this series too, they just happen to be facing a Yankees team that's even worse. God. All right. The Mets are 19-23 and they're 4th in the NL East. And they're up. I want to say they're losing 11-1 to Baltimore right now. So thank you, New York Mets, for helping the Yankees. Baltimore, if they win, will be a half game behind the Yankees for the 8th seed, which I can't believe I just said that statement out loud. The Mets split the series against the Philadelphia Phillies, which was a big series for them to win. And honestly, they could have won 3 out of 4. A little bit of a heartbreaking defeat in the final game of that set as they recovered from a 6-0 deficit against their former pitcher, Zach Wheeler, just to lose in extra innings. That's a tough way to lose what could potentially be a nice little 3-1 weekend against your division rivals. But outside of that, their offense has looked good. They scored 5 or more runs in 6 of the last 7 games. Obviously, they're 4 runs away from continuing that stretch tonight. But the pitching has been sketchy, similar to the Yankees, but their offense looks like it's coming around. And 19-23 in the NL is not that far away from getting that 8th spot.
Yeah, they are 5.5 games back of the Atlanta Braves, but I'm pretty sure they're only 2.5 games back of Miami, which they're at 500. They're 18-18. And there's not a lot of people, this baseball season's gone really fast, limited games. What is there, a couple of weeks left of the regular season?
The Yankees have 18 games left.
And they have one off day, I think, right?
Yeah. And the only good thing about that is that these teams are all playing division rivals at the end because it's all in there. So if you're going to make the playoffs, it's in your own destiny. And for the Mets' sake, that's why taking that 3rd game against the Phillies would have been huge. And, now they're playing Baltimore, probably a 2-3 game set, which it's big because they want to win. But at the same time, if you beat the Marlins when they play them again and they beat the teams that are in front of them, they have a chance.
Yeah, you look at the Mets, like you said, 5 runs or more in last 6 of last 7 games, but they're only 4-3, and that obviously doesn't include tonight. You said they're killing them, right? No, they're not killing them.
No, Baltimore's up 11-1.
Yeah, so that's obviously going to change, and that stat's going to go out the window. But for the Mets, they have one starting pitcher. That's pretty much it. They are DeGrom, but right now, even with the Yankees have to win a ton of games. You said 18 left.
Yep.
They got to win 10. What's their record in their last 19? Ready? It's terrible.
I can't tell you the last 19, but I can tell you that they are 2-8 in their last 10, and they had a 7-game losing streak before that.
And the Mets before tonight were 4-6 in their last 10. Obviously, again, that changes. But something funny the Mets didn't do, and this is just the Mets as a whole. Zach Wheeler wasn't on the team for that long, but even when you see players come back from teams that they were on, coming up in the organization, they always honor them. Mm-hmm. Mets are like, yeah, we're not doing that. The Mets didn't honor Zach Wheeler before the game.
He didn't have as long of a stay there, but the Yankees are 5-15 in their last 20 games. That's what it is. They were 16-6.
I don't know why I said 19.
That's what threw me off, because that was such a specific number that my math skills immediately started flaring, saying I can't do this. But yeah, I mean, as bad as the Yankees have been, the Mets are they're 4-6 in their last 10, and they're losing again tonight. Like, they just can't get over that hump. They just need to play 500 baseball to make the postseason. So it's interesting how New York sports have really one hope right now at success, and it's the Islanders.
And that's such a tough.
I mean,
well, football starts soon.
Okay.
Giants
We've
Monday night,
seen
the Steelers.
I know we've seen the optimism around New York football for a long time.
Well, there's a reason we don't discuss football on the show. No,
Yeah, exactly.
But for the Mets, though, there's a good thing that is happening is Pete Alonso's slowly but surely picking it up. He's now batting .226, 10 home runs, 25 RBIs, 796 OPS. But we think about stats, and it's timely. In every sport, it's what can you do now? If the Mets could find a way to, turn things around, it's going to be coming from Pete Alonso picking it up, McNeil picking it up. I know he's been hot. He hit his second homer of the year the other day. Cano has dropped. He was batting .400. Now he's around 3. I don't know. I'll figure it out. He's dropped a little bit since coming back, but that's as expected. I want to see the Mets make the playoffs. I do, because again, there was so much promise, and I feel for Met fans the same way as Islander fans when they were struggling. They were so bad, and there was no hope. This Mets lineup gives you hope, and you just got to get into the dance. All you have to do is get into the dance, and then
very true.
Depends on how your dancing skills are, if you get kicked out of the circle or not. But I mean, maybe if the Yankees got to the dance, they'll injure themselves breakdancing, and that's it. I have more faith in the Mets to stay healthy, especially because this is the difference. They've had people hurt, but they come back.
Yep.
And they don't go back. They might suck. Like Wilson Ramos might be terrible, or whoever gets injured might come back and not be as good, but they're on the field. And that's just, even if they're not, see, this is the thing, even if they're not playing well, right?
Yep.
It's protection in the lineup. If Stanton, Judge is in the lineup, right, and you put, maybe, it depends where they're going to put it. They put people in front. He could be so bad and batting 100, but you're not going to have a joke on that bat against Stanton, because one swing of the bat, the game changes, or a base hit, or he launches one, and then he gets hot. It's protection. And right now, the Yankees, LeMahieu's their best hitter. Guess what? They don't have to pitch LeMahieu.
Nope.
And that's the difference.
Everyone would get bumped down one. So Voit instead of second, now he's batting fifth. Frazier instead of fourth is batting sixth, and they just get deeper.
But that's the thing, though. They don't have the protection where you see at other teams where even if they're bad, they're still protecting those guys in front of them. I mean, you look at the top lineups in the league, and it's just like they have multiple guys that stay healthy. And well, that's the thing, is they stay healthy. Other teams stay healthy, and I really want to figure that's, I'm going to quit my work, which I don't have right now, and I'm going to just do a study. I want to go and look up what the Yankees train, what they do, and how they can figure it out, and maybe I'll go check out the Mets, because besides their second baseman, who should not be named, who can't come back from injury to save his life, and that's just an ugly contract, they're healthy. They're just not playing great, but they're healthy, and that's the biggest thing.
All right, so I got 3 things right now, 2 of which are pretty funny. One, the first we're going to start with, I had on Twitter a giveaway. I got a few retweets where we are giving away a John Mitchell signed puck from his 1 year with the Rangers. So pick a number 1 to 20.
What do you say the Yankees were in their last 20? 5 and 15?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll go 15.
All right, so the winner is Jill RK87 on Twitter. We will send you a message. Congratulations to Jill. She won the John Mitchell signed puck, and we will get in touch with her. But all right, so now my 2 little tidbits.
Yeah.
Luke Voit has 14 home runs on the season. Gary Sanchez has 13 hits.
That's 13 hits?
13 hits. That's the first fun fact. And this one is actually really funny.
Right,
because what did Bobby Ryan leave for?
Alcoholism.
So last night he wins the Bill Masterton Trophy, and Molson Canada, Beer Company.
They didn't offer him something.
No, they tweet out, big congrats to Bobby Ryan for winning the Bill Masterton, and oof, that is in bad taste. Immediately that they delete it, and they wound up saying, listen, we did that because we're a partner of the Ottawa Senators. He plays for the Senators, so we really didn't think anything of it. Oof, imagine a beer company tweeting out congratulations for basically being an alcoholic. That's just
when you put it like
taste,
that,
man. bad taste. But I found that to be so funny. It's like the small stuff on social media like that just make me cry.
Well, I mean, I've learned in my one PR class that you can't do that, and someone got fired for that. Someone got fired for that. They had to have
but that had to be scheduled because obviously it wasn't unknown that he could have won. So they were like, "Oh, listen, Bobby Ryan plays for the Senators. We're partners with the Senators. Please congratulate him." But any other company, great, good job. But come on, that one you just leave. Like you send him a personal thank you, congratulations. Don't blast that on social media because everyone is just ripping them to shreds.
I thought you were gonna say they sent them like a free beer on us, or
that would have been worse. Yeah,
here's 30 racks being sent to your hotel room right now.
That would have been significantly worse if they
not hotel room. He's not in it, but
beer for life.
It's like if John Tavares was allergic to bagels and Donald Rosner goes, "John, I'll give you bagels for life if you come there." And that's terrible marketing.
Yep.
But for that to be the Ottawa Senators team that did that, I am not shocked at all because thinking about it, that had to be approved by the team. Someone on the team, or probably 30 to 40 people, checked that and went, "Yeah, great idea. I love it. Wow, that is."
You ready for this Boone quote after the game tonight?
No, hold on. Let me. Yeah.
You got to buckle up for this one. Aaron Boone says the Yankees did a lot of good things tonight, but close isn't good enough right now. We need to find a way to get it done. How is having runners on base in every single inning? We did a lot of good things.
It's like when you're playing LB The Show and they talk to what's her name? Awful graphic because they didn't work hard on her at all. But whatever her name is
Heidi Watney.
Heidi Watney, which MLB The Show. You have so much money. The players look great.
They did her.
You couldn't make her look like a human being. Whatever. I don't bet on your part, but she'll be like, "Oh, I interviewed the manager in between innings," and you try to skip and it just won't work. And she goes, "Yeah, despite not being on the scoreboard, they've done a lot of good things in this game. They got guys on base. They've taken their pitch counts really high. They've walked 3 times in 2 innings. Really good stuff, and we hope to see them get on the board real soon." It's like pretty much saying like, "Boom, we did a lot of good things tonight. We did a lot more bad things because we didn't win the game, but good things. That's great."
I mean, that the quote was courtesy of Max Goodman, but to me, the perfect solution's out there. It's Buck Showalter. The veteran coach, no nonsense. If you tell me Stanton looks at Buck Showalter and says, "Oh, I'm still not ready to do baseball activities," that guy is just going to chirp him because when he played and was coaching earlier, that stuff did not fly. Okay, that did not fly. You played. Paul O'Neill was playing playoff games with torn legs and shoulders and all this stuff. Thus the moniker, the Warrior, right? Well, why can't these guys play? And you listen to a broadcast and you got Paul O'Neill talking about Gary Sanchez's swing, how he's pulling for home runs. Hire him as a hitting coach, for God's sake, because nobody's doing their job right now. Just there's got to be an extraordinary amount of coaching changes that occur.
Yeah, and one thing I start with the pitching coach. Well, first off,
yep,
Larry Rothschild, when he was a pitching coach towards the end, I feel like he went up to the mound and would be like, "So, nice weather today." I don't know what he said to them because it didn't help. And that was when the starting pitching last year he got let go this year or he left?
He had a new contract and they didn't give him one. He's somewhere else right now though.
Good for him. He's probably on the Phillies. He might could be.
That honestly very well might be.
You got to check that right now. But Buck Showalter would be great. But are you calling Boone soft? Is that what you're doing?
No,
as a manager.
There comes a point where John Tortorella, right?
Yeah.
If they're on the middle of a losing streak, he's not going, "We did a lot of good things tonight."
No, he's not talking to the media.
Call him out.
At his team.
But even that, you got to call out your team.
Yes.
It's got to be accountability, right? You say, "I didn't do this." That's all Yankees fans want to see. You don't want to hear the prototypical, "Oh, we did this well." No, say, "Listen, I have not gotten these guys ready to play." You know how much better Yankees fans would feel if they knew that somebody was being accountable? That's the problem. As somebody that roots for a team or watches it from the outside, you have no control. And then you got these guys that are all just passing around the prototypical, "Oh, we're doing it all right. We're just not there yet." You don't have time to get there. You got to figure it out right now. And you got to look at every single person. They haven't had a full team meeting yet. Brian Cashman called a team meeting today. Why hasn't the manager called a team meeting?
That was their first team meeting of the year?
Yeah. 5-15, your last 20, and that's a third of the season that you're 5-15 in. And you haven't had a team meeting. It wasn't needed. Please. You shouldn't have a job.
Well, life's not fair, Brendan. I mean, we probably could do a better job, helping. I mean, it's just tough to be there's always one team in New York that does well. And you could, as much as I don't hate the Mets at all, as a Yankee fan, I respect the fans because They are so passionate to the point that they get physically sick when the Mets do things, even though they know it's coming. They're just so hopeful, and I'm not saying they're blind because they're just so much wishful thinking that they get nauseous. Oh my God. That's how you spell it, guys, though. That's how if you were going to pronounce it to spell it. They just get so nauseous about the way their team plays, and I'm really starting to feel for them now because I'm in their shoes for the first time in my life, watching this Yankee team play the worst baseball probably of my life.
Yeah,
we got
they
the
haven't had a
Islanders.
losing season in 20-something years.
When they missed the playoffs, they didn't have a losing season.
Nope.
And it's like, all right, the Yankees, the Islanders make it to the Eastern Conference Final first time in 27 years, get shelled. The Yankees haven't played this bad in their life. I don't watch basketball because I just can't stand basketball. Football, I'm a Giants fan, and it is what it is with the Giants. But, dude.
So you ready for where Larry Rothschild is?
Give me I want you. You know what? We have 4 minutes left. Give me some hints.
West Coast.
Okay. Another AL.
NL.
He with the National? The Nationals aren't the West Coast. Stupid Stefan. Is he with the Giants?
That's bad geography right there.
Bad
No, he's not with the Giants.
Well, you can't tell me he's with the Padres. It would make too much
Yes,
sense.
he is. The 26-17 San Diego Padres. Larry Rothschild's their pitching coach.
I'm more embarrassed that I just said Washington. But
Dude, that's bad. We're gonna have to edit that out of the Spotify
until
version.
a couple years ago, I didn't know that West Virginia was a state.
You just thought it was the western part of Virginia?
I really did.
Oh God, there's some things you don't want to admit live, and I feel like that's one of them.
Oh, there's definitely other things I should admit live. No, I mean, good for him. It makes sense. Some people just can't handle. Even coaches just can't handle the New York spotlight. I mean, he was with the Yankees for a while, though. He was good.
He did good. They got rid of him because he didn't fit their analytic mold, which is clearly working so well for their bullpen right now. Their analytics. You got these guys. That's what I didn't get, by the way. How is Ottavino and Chad Green shaking off pitches?
Well, yeah, because
don't they know what's coming? Like, they have to know how they're facing these guys. Right? They got all these cards in their hat. They're terrible. I would love to go into that locker room and just look at all of them and tell them they're terrible.
Right, each one. But see, the question though is, I just thought about this now. Is not Kratz. I'm talking about when Sanchez catches, right? I want to know what the stat is and how the pitchers pitch, and if it's better with Kratz or somebody else in there. Because as much as he's a liability on offense and defense with blocking stuff, he's the quarterback of the pitching staff. He's calling the shots. Is that a problem too? Is he not good enough to do that?
Oh, he's terrible.
At all facets of the game.
There was an 11-pitch at bat, right, in the 5th inning. And apparently there was a pop-up in foul territory that was very routine, and he dropped it, like just straight up muffed it. And then the guy wound up walking. Luckily, Happ got out of the inning. But I look at him, and now he's doing this one knee thing, so he can't block to one side of the plate. Why? It's because I understand Cashman going, I'm backing my guy, but there comes a point where you are never, ever, ever going to see what Sanchez did in that stretch when he first got called up again. Every year since then, it's deteriorated. And sure, he's got the power. He's got, 6 home runs? Okay. I don't care about that. I really don't. If you're 6 home runs, you have 13 hits on the whole year. You're legitimately – he struck out 7 straight times before his first at-bat tonight where he grounded to third base, then proceeded to strike out the next 2 times, and then grounded again.
You know what's crazy? And you made the comment earlier. Austin Romine would be perfect to have back because I always explain this, like, why do you have to let him go? First off, Higashioka last year, every time he played, he hit a home run. That was it. It was home run or bust. You have such an offensively talented team. We have to go in just a couple of seconds, but you have such an offensively talented team. Why do you need another offense? Why can't you get a defensive player? Gio Schiller is defense and offense. LeMahieu, defense and offense. You tell me in this lineup's that deep that you can't afford to just go out there and get a defensive catcher? You don't need an offense. You don't need a guy that can crush home runs. You need a guy that's going to play perfect defense. They had that. They had that with Romine. Romine was, his bat woke up a little bit. He was so good at playing defense, and that's what they need. They need someone controlling the field because their pitching staff's been terrible, and it's really hurt the offense going in holes early, and vice versa. The offense has been terrible, and the pitching staff's been worse. It's just a tough break, man.
I'm happy we're done because I got to go get my blood pressure down.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
I don't know. Jumping jacks, I can't. I'm so stressed watching them because it's like you know what they should be doing and what they have to be doing, and they just can't do it.
All right, guys. So we are now going to be on Tuesdays only each week. Today was from 8 to 10, but next time it'll be from 9 to 11. So we will see you guys next week. We will post our stuff to social media later tomorrow. And Chris King, what an interview. We thank him so much for coming on. We'll post that separately as well. So everybody, take care. Deep breaths. New York fans will get through it together. Have a good one, guys.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.